How's it hanging, guys? My name is Mateo Reynes,
I'm Dylan Freeman.
and this is the Weekly Assist. Nick could not attend today, doing another crew thing. So I'm going to start off with some sad news. It's been a long week. Not everything that's happened is good. Of course, the 49ers won. We'll get into that later. But Stephen Curry broke his hand. He is expected to be out for 3+ months. That is not good for the Warriors. Eric Paschall has been on fire for the Warriors. The rookie out of Villanova. He's been the only bright spot. And last night, they just recorded their first home win at Chase Center. Bottom line is, a lot of people think that the Warriors should tank the rest of the season. They have no chance as Klay Thompson's out, Steph Curry's out. The last couple of games, Draymond Green and D'Angelo Russell have been out, so it is not looking like a good future. Another thing that isn't a good future is Gardner Minshew, the rookie for the Jacksonville Jaguars, has been benched. He had a little bit of a rough game last week. We'll get into that. But Nick Foles, after their bye week, will be the starting quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville gave him a big contract, so it's understandable that they want him to get some action after his injury. Gardner Minshew played really well stepping in, but it did not last. Another thing that happened is the Nationals won the World Series. World Series champions in Washington. They're able to pull it off in 7 games versus the Houston Astros in Houston. And Mattress Mac lost about $10 million. It's pretty sad. I felt a little bad for him, and then I looked him up, and it said he had, a lot of money. I forget the exact amount, but I think it was, in the $100 million. So don't feel bad for him anymore. Another new news is a quarterback that is injured. Cam Newton has been put on IR, injured reserve. He is out this season. It's going to raise some questions about the Panthers quarterback crop going forward. And the last news before we go into last week in the NFL is the Los Angeles Chargers. After pulling off a remarkable victory, there's rumors that because they have no fans, literally their game last week, there's all Packers fans there. It looked like Lambeau Field. And there's rumors that they might move to London. That would shift the Texans into the AFC West, supposedly, but the owner refuted it with some language, interesting language. And it doesn't look like it's going to be too likely, but it's going to be interesting, especially with the Chargers moving into the Rams Stadium that the Rams do not want to share with the Chargers next year. It's going to be interesting to watch. Last week in the NFL, we started off with some Thursday night football. San Francisco 49ers at Arizona Cardinals. I realized that I way over-talked Dylan last week talking about the 49ers, so I'm going to let you start this one off. What are your thoughts on the big victory for the San Francisco 49ers?
The big story is Jimmy G, our franchise quarterback, Jimmy Franchise, finally had his big game. 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, just the game 49ers fans have been waiting for. And a big story is the wide receiver we traded for earlier in the season, Emmanuel Sanders, is a game changer. His route running ability is superb, and he's constantly able to find the soft spots in coverage. He knows when to sit and flash his hands and when to move around to the QB.
This game was during the night of Halloween, Thursday night. I was walking around with my brother and sister, getting a little bit of candy for them, and I was definitely following along on my phone, streaming it on Sportacular. Basically, I watched the entire game, got home for the end of it, and I was so happy about my man, Jimmy Garoppolo. I have been a Garoppolo stan. Even 49ers fans aren't 100% trustworthy, or they don't 100% believe, but the whole time I've been, Jimmy G is our guy. I believe in him. He finally had the game, which is great. It was versus the Arizona Cardinals, but one questionable thing by the Arizona Cardinals is Cliff Kingsbury, the rookie head coach for the aforementioned Cardinals, called a timeout before halftime, essentially setting up the 49ers for a touchdown. Did you see that, Dylan?
I didn't exactly see the timeout you were referring to, but what I will say about Cliff Kingsbury is, although he may have had that bad call, I haven't really watched the Cardinals. I'll admit I haven't really watched the Cardinals too much this season, but they were playing my Niners, so of course I was watching. And I like the schemes that he's coming up with. He's a young rookie coach in this league, and I think he has a bright future. Talking about the 49ers defense, although it is amazing, the past 2 weeks we have given up big yardage to running backs. Although the week before was against the Panthers and Christian McCaffrey, and it's just impossible to stop him. But with K'Wan Alexander, outside middle linebacker, out for the season with, I believe, a pectoral injury, it's key that this defensive coaching staff works with our linebackers on their coverage, especially on running backs out of the backfield.
I was just going to mention that K'Wan is out for the season. Same injury that J.J. Watt suffered a few weeks earlier, so that is very disappointing for this Niners team. And one thing that I'd like to mention is that Kenyon Drake had a big game for the Arizona Cardinals. He rushed for 110 yards and a touchdown, also caught for 52 yards. He was in a bad situation in Miami, so it's good that he got out of that, and it's going to raise some questions about him or David Johnson or even Chase Edmonds as a third guy going forward. But also, George Kittle, he got hurt in the first quarter, and it was a big scare. The injury looked bad, but he came out and had a monster game. He carried like 4 Cardinals defenders with him in the end zone. He did a nasty stiff arm to a Cardinals defender, and he caught for 79 yards and a touchdown. Very hyped up after this game, but it's looking good for the 49ers offense. One question mark was the running game. Seems like every other week a different guy breaks out. Coleman, a lot of people had confidence in him after his big game the week prior, but he did not show up, but Matt Breida did. One last thing I'd like to point out about the 49ers offense is that my guy, Dante Pettis, finally had a good game. Not technically a good game. He had 1 catch. It was a touchdown, but I'm glad that he had that touchdown. I have faith in him, and I think that the addition of Manuel Sanders will really open up the playbook for him.
A small side story for the Cardinals and their future. A small side story on the future of this Cardinals offense is rookie speedster wide receiver Andy Isabella, who hauled in his first touchdown of his young rookie career, and he had an 88-yard catch and run. This looks bright for the Cardinals with a nice rookie wide receiver doing well, and he is a speedster, and I did like him out of college.
Yeah, it's very interesting. This is only his 3rd catch of the year, so it's going to be interesting if they're going to involve him more. Cliff Kingsbury is, but yeah, that was a good catch for him. His only other catches were versus Cincinnati, October 6th. He had 2 receptions for 11 yards, so we'll see if the Cardinals get him involved going forward. The 6:30 a.m. game was Texans at Jaguars, and as I mentioned before, Gardner Minshew has been benched. He did not look great in the game. He did throw for 309 yards, but he had 2 interceptions, and they both were horrendous. He both completely missed the wide receiver, overthrew them, and went straight into Texans defenders.
Yeah, Minshew, although great at keeping plays alive, he did have a bad, costly fumble at the end of the game. I understand that he's trying to make something happen, but you got to hold on to the ball there. What I was seeing in the game was he was dropping back a lot, and they often had receivers running a lot of late developing routes, and he just wasn't able to find them there. And I think this is just the game the Jaguars needed to bench Minshew because he was playing great, and I'm sure they wanted to play their quarterback that they paid a lot in Nick Foles.
One big thing for the Texans offense is Carlos Hyde ran for 160 yards. He would have had a touchdown. He was wide open for the big score, and then a Jacksonville defender punched the ball out on the 1-yard line. So that was a bonehead move not to speed it up into the end zone. But otherwise, he had a great game, and Deshaun Watson is looking like a really good quarterback. He looked through for 2 touchdowns. He only was incomplete on 6 passes, and he definitely looks like one of the top-tier quarterbacks in the NFL today.
Yeah, the Texans don't have Zeke or Melvin Gordon or past Melvin Gordon in at running back, but they know how to utilize Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde to the fullest. They're able to run packages that utilize their skill sets respectively, and Watson is just electric. His ability to move around, move in and out of the pocket is just insane. But what I've seen, though, is that the Texans next offseason and the offseason's continuing still need to commit to getting people on the O-line to protect him.
Definitely. Great point right there, Dylan. Next game we're going to go into is Bears at Eagles. This is a game that I was skeptical about because I wasn't aware if there was going to be a true winner, and it was just that type of game. I was right in choosing the Eagles because Mitch Trubisky is not the guy. He had another horrendous game. David Montgomery ran for 2 touchdowns, their only scores, and basically they should have ran it more with David Montgomery. But otherwise, Mitchell Trubisky should get cut. He should get traded. I don't even think he has any value, maybe a high-end backup quarterback. But on the other side of the ball, Carson Wentz didn't have to do too much for the Eagles. Jordan Howard had a pretty good game in his revenge game versus the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of screaming about Mitchell Trubisky, so I'll just say he was underwhelming. I mean, I don't really have much else to say. Montgomery found the end zone twice, but he had only 40 yards on 12 carries. And you'd suspect after his big game last week they'd give him more, but I guess not. But that's definitely what Matt Nagy and the Chicago Bears need to try to do. Get the ball out of Trubisky's hands and get it to your rookie running back, David Montgomery.
This is the fourth straight loss for the Chicago Bears, and also in their first 5 possessions, they had 5 3-and-outs and negative 10 yards for the offense. So this offense is not going anywhere, and it'd be interesting what they're going to do at quarterback going forward, as I say every week. But they're sticking with Trubisky. They have Chase Daniel as their backup. Maybe they'll draft somebody. Maybe Herbert will fall to them. There's a pretty good quarterback crop coming in next season. So that should be something to watch. That should be my tagline because I say that every single episode. Vikings versus Chiefs. That was a football game. Cut it out. All right. The next game is Vikings at Chiefs. This game was a nail-biter to the very end. The Chiefs made a game-winning field goal with Harrison Butker, and Patrick Mahomes was the first one out to celebrate with him. He looked very healthy running out with the team. Butker said he wanted to give Mahomes a bear hug, but he didn't want the whole pile coming towards him. Keep his quarterback healthy, who was out. But Chase Daniel had a pretty good game. 3 for 275 yards and a touchdown. Definitely not a second string quarterback performance. Better than Mitch Trubisky. And the big story was Tyreek Hill had another monster game. Him and Moore have a great connection in the last couple of weeks. And Tyreek Hill caught for 140 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, even in a losing effort, though, Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins continues his streak of good games. He played well, 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I said in the podcast last week that the biggest factor coming into this game would be the run game, and I thought that would be dominated by the Minnesota Vikings with Dalvin Cook. But Cook did not play well this game, and I think that's why the Vikings couldn't pull it out.
Do you know who did run well? Damian Williams of the Kansas City Chiefs. He isn't a number 1 running back in the NFL. At the beginning of the season, he wasn't even a number 1 running back in many's eyes, and he ran for 125 yards on 12 rushes and a touchdown. He had a big 91-yard run that sealed the stats, but as you said, Kirk Cousins played pretty well, but some of the late-game blitzes from the Kansas City Chiefs really came to haunt the team in the end.
Yeah, I'll give credit to this poor Chiefs defense. They did pretty well stopping Diggs to this game. He was basically a non-factor. And you'd almost think that the Chiefs can afford to sit Mahomes another week and play more against the Titans. I mean, that's a safe game, and they would do that just to be safe. This offense is just explosive and star-studded enough to get a win over a team like the Titans, but I feel that they'll bring Mahomes back if he's able to go.
Yeah, as you said about Stephon Diggs, they completely shut him down. He only had 1 catch on the game. He was targeted only 4 times, and he had 4 yards. So very disappointing game. He's been going crazy the last couple of weeks, so that was kind of surprising for me, but seems like Kirk Cousins always has the certain guys that he targets, but he did spread the ball around very well in this game. All right, the next game was Colts versus Steelers, and the big headline was Jacoby Brissett went down. He was 4 for 5 and for 59 yards, and then he got injured, so that was not good. Brian Hoyer stepped up. He had a pretty good game, 168 yards, 3 touchdowns, but 1 interception is what really killed him. But the big story is Adam Vinatieri, the oldest man in the NFL, 47 years old, laces out. Rigoberto Sanchez had a laces out placement, and they missed the game go-ahead, potentially game-winning field goal. He also missed an extra point, and I'm thinking the Colts are going to keep him for the rest of the season because they can't just cut the guy. He's done a lot for their franchise, but I definitely think Adam Vinatieri is retiring after this year.
Yeah, I suppose Hoyer wasn't bad for what he is, but he couldn't secure the W. The Steelers offense was very underwhelming, didn't do much, with kicker Chris Boswell scoring essentially half of their points. But a big story, something all Steelers fans could and should be happy about, is Minkah Fitzpatrick. This has been a great trade, and it's paid off amazingly. He had a 96-yard pick six to put the Steelers over the edge in this game.
The one thing that did work for the Steelers offense was Jalen Samuels in the receiving game. He had 13 catches on 13 targets for 73 yards. Great for PPR football, for fantasy. But Trey Edmonds was the premier rusher for the Steelers offense with James Conner's injury. The next game was in Miami, and the Heat Waves led Sam Darnold to see ghosts, and the Dolphins got their first win. In this
Congratulations.
divisional game, the Dolphins beat the Jets of New York. This is kind of a surprising victory considering the quarterbacks for each team is Sam Darnold and Ryan Fitzpatrick. But Ryan Fitzpatrick had a good game. Threw for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. He definitely, in my opinion, stealed the starting quarterback job over Josh Rosen for the rest of the season unless something goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, Darnold, again, was just poor in this game. And if you listen, you know I'm a USC fan. You know I love Darnold. It's okay. By this time next year, if he's playing like this, I'll let him go. But my question is, what is up with Le'Veon Bell? And I'm not just taking attention off Sam Darnold playing poorly. What is up with Le'Veon Bell? 3.9 yards per carry on 20 rushes? Is it play calling? I don't know what it is, but he's just been a non-factor this season.
Yeah, that is definitely a good question because he was rumored in trade talks. He's probably going to get traded after this year considering that. But they said even after his locker room issues in Pittsburgh, he's been a really good locker room presence, but he just isn't showing up on the field. One interesting statistic coming out of this game is before this game, Miami only led for 3 minutes and 46 seconds. And in this game, they led for 36 minutes and 17 seconds. It's kind of a useless stat, but I thought it'd be pretty interesting. But one big thing is that Fitzpatrick has a great connection with Preston Williams, connected with him on 2 touchdowns, and Mike Gesicki, the second-year tight end in the NFL, caught 6 passes on 6 targets. I believed that he was going to break out. He had a good game this week, and that is good going forward. But the problem is their leading rusher, Mark Walton, who has stepped up into the starting role after Kenny Drake was traded, had just been suspended. And that's what happens after Miami gets good things, bad things happen.
Yeah, and another bad thing, referring back to Preston Williams, who's looked good. He's a big, physical, and athletic wide receiver. And like you alluded to, Fitzpatrick has a very good connection to him. I think he has the potential to be a top 20 or even higher wide receiver in the league. But sadly, he is out for the season with a season-ending injury.
Wow, I completely missed that headline.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. All right, and that is Miami. Miami won. Good game, Miami. These teams are both 1-7 in the same division. Looks like the Patriots are going to win that one. We'll get into that later. Next is Redskins at Bills. The second best team in the division is the Bills at a record of 6-2. Last year at this time, they were 2-6, so it's a big improvement. But the best thing for them is that they're finally getting Devin Singletary involved. He ran for 95 yards and 1 touchdown. I've been preaching all year that they need to get him involved. They need to get him involved. They need to get him involved, and they got him involved.
Yeah, there's not really much to say in this game, especially about rookie quarterback Dwayne Haskins. I literally wrote down that he was whatever. He played whatever. 15 for 22, 140 yards passing, no touchdowns. I don't think he's the guy. I don't like to jump on young quarterbacks early, but I'm just not seeing it out of him. But Adrian Peterson, he played very well. 18 rushes, 108 yards. And as Mateo said, another very productive day for rookie running back Devin Singletary. I don't think that the Bills will continue to have a committee with him and Frank Gore. I think Singletary will step up and have a bigger role in this offense. I believe he got about 70% of the snaps in this game, and he has a very bright future. He's a very explosive runner, very elusive.
Yeah, Frank Gore is my guy, but I think that they need to give it to Devin Singletary going forward. And also, Peterson of Adrian Peterson, the former best player in the NFL. In the first half, he looked really good. He ran for 101 yards on 10 rushes. And in the second half, he ran for 7 yards on 8 rushes. So the second half did not go his way. This game was semi-close during it, but Dwayne Haskins could not finish drives. He did get on his feet a little bit. He's never known as a rusher, but he got that one rush for first down, caught it on the Red Zone channel. So that's the only bright spot I saw of him the whole day. But it's going to be interesting going forward, as I say always, if he is the guy. They did draft him pretty high with the 14th overall pick, I believe. There was rumors earlier that he was going to go to the Giants at like 7, but they went with Danny Jones, as we'll get into later. But, yeah, Dwayne Haskins Jr. There, that's him.
I mean, I'm no Matthew Berry, but I'll give a little bit of fantasy advice here. If you have Terry McLaurin on your roster in fantasy football, I'd suggest not playing him. He just doesn't have a connection with Dwayne Haskins, and which is surprising considering they played at Ohio State together, but his production has gone down severely with Dwayne Haskins starting at quarterback for the Redskins.
Yeah, him and Case Keenum had a great connection earlier in the year. It's going to be we'll see if Case Keenum comes back after the concussion, but Dwayne Haskins is the quarterback as of now. The other game where there's a quarterback as of now is Kyle Allen and the Carolina Panthers. Cam Newton has just been put on IR, so it is all Allen unless he plays bad and Will Grier gets a shot. But they pulled off a victory against the Tennessee Titans. It wasn't very pretty, but what was pretty was Christian McCaffrey's game. Ran for 146 yards, 24 rushes for 2 touchdowns. Also caught for 20 yards and a touchdown, and he is the MVP of this team.
Yeah, I suppose this is a good spot for Kyle Allen to be. He's the starter for the rest of the season, one would presume, with Cam being placed on IR. But with Christian McCaffrey back there, I mean, you really don't have to do much, and you can afford to make a few mistakes. Touching on the Titans offense, Tannehill had 2 costly interceptions that threw away this game, but he did have 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown. I don't think he's the guy, but I do think they should stick with him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I am a Ryan Tannehill hater. As Dylan is with Sam Darnold, I am with Marcus Mariota. So I don't think they're going to go back to Marcus Mariota. I don't think they should go back to Marcus Mariota. I think his time as a Tennessee Titan is done. I hope Marcus Mariota has a good situation going to a new team as he is a free agent next year. But I don't think Ryan Tannehill is the guy in Tennessee, if you ask me. But Derrick Henry had a good game. It's basically their whole offense besides Ryan Tannehill in the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, Ryan Tannehill threw and rushed for a touchdown pretty much in garbage time. But Derrick Henry was their offense for pretty much the whole game. Another headline is Ryan Suckup really sucked it up. That's good. Good joke, right?
Yes, I'm laughing.
Pretty funny. All right, so he missed 3 field goals on 3 attempts. He did make both extra points, but doesn't look like a very good kicker. He's been in the league for a long time, as I can remember. I believe he's on the Chiefs. He's been tenured for the Titans for a while, but looking like they're going to need – kickers are so hard to come by in this league. It's like kickers and quarterbacks are the 2 hardest positions to get good players at, which is really interesting. You'd think that there's more than 32 guys that can kick the ball through an upright in the NFL. I mean, in the United States, in the world, but it doesn't seem like that. All those guys are somewhere in a different country playing football.
Yeah, and you wonder how many games the Bears would have won if they didn't let Robbie Gould walk, but it's okay, it went to our Niners. But back to this game, back to the Panthers offense, a story that may be interesting to follow is a quarterback situation here. Obviously, we know Kyle Allen's the starter, but if he begins to play poorly and he's just not able to win, maybe the Panthers think about playing rookie quarterback out of Western Virginia, Will Grier. I like what I've seen from Will Grier and his tape from Western Virginia. I don't think he's necessarily ready right now, but I mean, it couldn't hurt to play him if they're not really in a position to win many games and Kyle Allen isn't playing very well.
Yeah, I was thinking coming into this season that Will Grier was a good quarterback. I think he was a second round selection, but he is in a situation where at the beginning of the season, there's 2 quarterbacks above him on the depth chart. Now he's only 1 behind. I hope he gets in a situation where he can get some playing time on the field somewhere in the near future, but his dad is a pretty cool guy. I saw him on the show QB1 on Netflix. It was funny because they said Grier, and I'm like, I wonder if that's Will Grier's dad. And it was. So, good story right there. Next game is Lions at Raiders. And I predicted that the Lions were going to come into the black hole, and they're going to struggle, and the Raiders were going to win, and that is what happened. Derek Carr had a pretty good game. He threw for 2 touchdowns and no picks. And Josh Jacobs. Whoa, that guy. I think he's the rookie of the year, as we'll get into later. But he ran for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's looking like the franchise running back down there in Oakland and soon to be Las Vegas.
Although they did not win, what did not struggle for this Lions offense was the passing game. Stafford played electric, having a lot of yards as he has this whole season. But the biggest factor, which seems to be a trend in many of these games, is a run game for the Lions. If this skilled Lions O wants to win, and I think they are a good team, if they want to win, they need a running game. They need a running back to replace Kerryon Johnson, and I don't know who it is. Jay Ajayi's out there. I don't know how much cartilage is in his knee. But with both Galladay and Marvin Jones looking great, they just need that run game to put them over the edge.
Yeah, I agree with that. After that big Kerryon Johnson injury, that was a fault. And one thing I will notice is it seems like the Lions always give up a bunch of points. Their defense isn't up to par, and that's very surprising considering that Mr. Matt Patricia was the defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. So that's interesting. But Matt Stafford, I'm a big believer in him. I think he's a great quarterback. He always picks up his guys. He always spreads around the ball. And Kenny Golladay had another good game, which is good. 4 receptions, 132 yards. So I think it's great when they get him involved, but they just weren't able to pull off the victory. One thing that I will add is that late in the game, like literally, the Lions completed a pass and they had the ball on like the 4-yard line with like 13 seconds left. They were trying to hurry up, and John Gruden gave him a timeout. I thought that was going to be a turning point where the Lions got the game time touchdown. I'm like, the Lions aren't 100% set up for this play, so I'm surprised that they're going to let them prepare for it. But apparently, John Gruden can see his future because they were not able to pull off the touchdown.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed by this Raiders offense, surprisingly. Everything that went on in the offseason with Antonio Brown and all that mess. But the Raiders have persevered, and I like where they're going. As we touched on Josh Jacobs, he's just been amazing. The ball was spread around pretty well by Derek Carr. And at the end of the game, rookie, little small slot white guy, Hunter Renfrow, caught the game-winning touchdown. He had a nice catch in the end zone, nice toe tap. And I like what they have going on that offense.
I agree with you there. I'm a really big believer in Josh Jacobs. In fantasy-wise, I drafted him in a lot of leagues, paid off, so that is good. But another running back that I've been a believer in for a while that not necessarily panned out was Ronald Jones, and he finally had the game. He ran for 67 yards and a touchdown, and they're lost to the Seahawks. I'm gonna confess right here. Coming in, I'm like, oh, this is not going to be a good game. This is going to be a blowout. Seahawks are going to destroy the Buccaneers. But the Buccaneers were leading at halftime. It was 21-13. Jameis Winston had a pretty good game, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You do not see that very often from Jameis Winston. But, of course, Jameis Winston, in his baby hands, had the fumble, which cost the Buccaneers the game in the long run. But, of course, Russell Wilson is the MVP of the NFL up to this point. 5 touchdowns, 378 yards. 0 interceptions. Should I say more?
I think you said enough. Surprisingly enough, Winston, he played pretty well. And this is what the Bucs hoped he would be like every game, but that's just not the way it is. He didn't make too many mistakes, but of course, since he's Jameis Winston, he has to make one. The Bucs believe that they found their guy in second-year running back Ronald Jones, as Mateo talked about. 62 yards, 1 touchdown. He may have had some untapped potential. He's been sharing carries with Peyton Barber, but they officially named him the starter for the Week 10 matchup.
Another guy that I believe in at running back is Rashad Penny, but he is getting outshined by Chris Carson. Last year, I was not a believer in Chris Carson at all. During the fantasy draft, I said, don't draft Chris Carson, but he looks like the guy. That whole Seahawks offense, Russell Wilson lifts them up, opens up the run game with some play actions, and he got to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Both had monster games. Tyler Lockett had 2 touchdowns, over 150 yards receiving. DK Metcalf had a tub and over 120 yards receiving. On the other side, Mike Evans had a big game receiving. This was definitely a game through the air in this one. And through the rushing game, too.
Yeah, that's really the beauty of the Seahawks offense. They're able to run the ball, and they're able to run it down your throat with Chris Carson. And that opens up play action, and they often throw the ball downfield, which is why I believe this was a perfect place for DK Metcalf to end up, and it has panned out to be that way. Potentially, if the Buccaneers invest in this run game and Ronald Jones truly is the guy, they'll be able to open up more opportunities for play action and more opportunities for wide receivers to get open down the field.
Yeah, and if I'm going to be honest, I'm a little worried about next week's Monday Night Football matchup. We'll get into that later, but the Seahawks are going to have Josh Gordon added to this receiving crops. That is scary, especially in our division. Another game that surprised me a lot was the Packers at the Chargers. The Packers offense has been on fire recently. Seems like Aaron Rodgers is able to make do with whatever situation he has, but they lost to the Chargers. Chargers have been horrible this season. They're finally back to a little bit better health, but Aaron Rodgers did not have a game. Aaron Jones did not have a game. This is the first time since 2013 that an Aaron Rodgers-led offense has had less than 50 yards in the first half.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, surprisingly, and Aaron Jones, both the Aarons, did nothing this game. Chargers winning against the Packers, that's nothing I could have predicted. In his return game, Devontae Adams goes for 41 yards. I thought he would be a big factor in this game, but a big factor was Rivers. He was very efficient, only missing on 7 passes for 294 yards. And a big story was 2 touchdowns rushing for Melvin Gordon, finally finding the end zone, finally having a big game. And it was also a big game for both Hunter Henry and Mike Williams.
Yeah, the Chargers have let go of their offensive coordinator in a couple weeks ago, and they have new guy Shane Steeson, and he really established the running back by committee that the Chargers needed to flourish. And they have Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler getting reps in the rushing game, which really helped out this offense and opened it up for Phillip Rivers and the guy next to them in the receiving depth chart. All right, another game that surprised me. Third straight was the Browns losing to the Broncos. This Browns, at the beginning of the season, everyone's like, "Oh, the Browns might make the Super Bowl." Hey, they look like they're going to be a good team. Hey, they got Odell Beckham Jr. Hey, but
why are you Canadian?
Mayfield, I don't know. Just seems like they lost to the Broncos with a quarterback that has never had an offensive rep as his quarterback in the NFL. It's his first start since the 2016 Liberty Bowl in college football. Brandon Allen, he threw for 2 touchdowns on you guys, and you guys lost. The offense scored 19 points. Okay, go ahead.
Mayfield was just not good. And as well as that, there was an underwhelming run game, which is very surprising. But who didn't have an underwhelming game on the ground was Broncos running back Phillip Lindsay. He finally had a big game, living up to the hype that he received after his rookie season last season. 92 yards, 1 touchdown. Another big day for a young Broncos offensive player was rookie tight end Noah Fant. 115 yards receiving, 1 touchdown on only 3 targets.
Odell Beckham Jr. is not looking like the best fit in Cleveland. Baker Mayfield is not targeting him enough, and Dylan will get into that. But also, him and Jarvis Landry, who are big buddies, both had to take off their cleats at halftime because they did not conform to the uniform. And may I say something about the uniform? This was bad to watch. I could not believe that these combinations got approved by the NFL. Orange versus brown on orange? Okay.
Yeah. Speaking about frustration, not only at the league, clearly taking a shot at the league with those cleats, haha, so funny, I'm wearing the wrong cleats, ha. Frustration with Baker Mayfield on the side of Odell Beckham. On the last play of the game, there was a play devised at the end of the game where you think they try and throw it to their amazing wide receiver that they acquired in this offseason, Odell Beckham Jr., and he beat Chris Harris off the line. He beat Chris Harris deep, and you just throw it up to him. If you're Baker, throw it up to him. Let him take a shot. It's the last play of the game. And that doesn't happen, and Odell Beckham is clearly, visibly upset after that, and it's just not looking bright. He's not getting the targets, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Freddie Kitchens, and it might be Freddie Kitchens, or it might be he doesn't have a connection with Baker.
Yeah, Freddie Kitchens is definitely not cooking up a good offensive play. That was a good one, right? Okay. All right, but one question is, Odell, as an NFL player, has a record combined of 27-41. That is not good. And people are wondering if that's a coincidence or is he just not a good team guy and he has something to do with it. So he was a big acquisition that everyone was very excited about, but it does not seem to have worked out so far in Cleveland, if I do say so myself. Sunday Night Football, Patriots at Ravens. And the Ravens won by 17 points. Lamar Jackson really showed up through the air, and when that didn't work, he ran for 2 touchdowns and 61 yards, and he looks like a really good quarterback in this National Football League. Take the weight you want to take in this game. It's not like Bill Belichick really cares about this game as much as he does in playoffs, so he might have not devised the same game plan, but it was definitely a statement win for these Ravens, who earlier in the season lost to the Cleveland Browns, who we just touched on.
I feel like analysts around the league and all that are putting more weight into this game than even Patriots fans and those in the Patriots organization are. I mean, obviously, if you're the Patriots, you care about a loss like this, but everyone knows they don't put out everything that they have in these games. But what I will say about the Pats is you begin to wonder if Tom Brady at this age and at his ability is going to be able to outplay and win against these teams with explosive quarterbacks, Mahomes, Jackson, Watson, to name a few.
And the Patriots definitely had some turnover troubles in this game. Tom Brady threw an interception while they were trying to get the lead, only down by 10 in the fourth quarter. Julian Edelman fumbled, which was returned by a touchdown by Marlon Humphrey. And yeah, that's very interesting because the Patriots are not known to fumble. And that ends, to turn it over at all. And that ends the Patriots' 13-game winning streak coming back from last year. And one positive note is that Tom Brady had a good connections with Mohamed Sanu in this game. 10 receptions, 81 yards and a touchdown. So it's good that he has another wide receiver to throw to for the rest of the season. For the Ravens, they had a good rushing game from Mark Ingram, who has had a really good rushing season. He averaged 7.7 yards per rush in this game. The last game was Monday Night Football. I incorrectly predicted this game. I said that the Giants, Danny Dimes, was going to have a good game, and he did not. He turned it over 3 times, fumbled twice, threw an interception, and after the black cat ran across the field, it was all bad for the Giants in this game.
Yeah, at the end of the first half, there was an interception that I'd like to touch on by Daniel Jones. It was the end of the first half. It was a big play. They were trying to get down in scoring position. Daniel Jones needs to read the safety on this. He gets picked off, but a little bit of leeway for him. Darius Slayton turned his head around very late, and he could have possibly broken up this pass or even made the catch. But the Cowboys, throughout this game, were able to get constant pressure on Danny Dimes, which is horrible for a young quarterback.
Yeah, Darius Slayton and him had a great connection last week, and where they caught for connected for 2 touchdowns, but they did not this game. 1 reception for 6 yards. But another highlight was, not unhighlight, is Saquon Barkley only ran for 28 yards. He's one of the top NFL players coming in. He's dealt with some injuries this year, so it hasn't been great for him, but that's very surprising for me. But Dallas, Dak Prescott had a good game. I am not a big Dak Prescott fan. He threw an interception in the first to begin the game, but he brought it back with 3 touchdowns through the air. And when Ezekiel Elliott rushes and Dak Prescott plays well, it's always a good sign for these obnoxious Cowboys fans.
I consider myself a Daniel Jones believer. I don't think he's going to be some amazing quarterback, but I think he's going to be a mainstay in this Giants offense. But let's face it, I'm facing it. Daniel Jones has a fumble problem. He has problems controlling the ball, securing the ball. He has 7 fumbles this season. He's an athletic quarterback. At least in comparison to Eli Manning, but he is an athletic quarterback, and he has great mobility. He's able to run, but he needs to protect the ball.
Yeah, this game looks like a little bit more of a blowout than it actually was. The Cowboys scored 2 late-game touchdowns to seal the deal in insurance, but definitely a bright side. If the Cowboys lost this game, this would be a very bad sign for them. There's always speculation on Garrett's position as head coach, but good old Jerry Jones always maintains that Garrett's their coach for the outcome of the rest of the year. But it's the one thing that's funny is that the Jets beat the Cowboys. If the Cowboys end up having a good season, always going to bring back to these obnoxious Cowboys fans that the Jets beat the Cowboys, the Dolphins beat the Jets. Therefore, Dolphins better than Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't exactly know what Jason Garrett does for this Cowboys team anymore besides just being there and saying, I'm the head coach. But he used to be the offensive play caller last season, but that was handed over to Kellen Moore now. And I know Jerry Jones has a little man crush on Jason Garrett, but I don't know how useful he really is at this point.
Very interesting that Kellen Moore is the offensive play caller and offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. I think eventually he's going to take over the head coach job, but he was the backup quarterback for Dak, and he was a backup quarterback for the Cowboys for many years, but he really seems like he's a good coach, and he's probably going to be a head coach in the NFL in the future. We're going to get into picks next. Last week I was 7-7. Dylan was 6-8. Now I'm in the lead. I have a winning percentage of 55%. Dylan has 40%. Nick has 28%, but he hasn't picked for the last couple weeks. A couple of the picks we had different is I picked the Raiders, he picked the Lions, I picked the Texans, he picked the Jags, and the one that he won that was different was the Cowboys-Giants. I mistakenly picked the Giants. But next week's picks, starting out with Thursday Night Football, Raiders at Chargers. Although the Chargers have had a recent boom, I'm thinking Raiders in the home game. Again, as I said last week, one of the final games in Oakland for the Raiders this season and for the rest of their lives as a team.
Yeah, I think this Raiders offense is going to stay hot. I wouldn't call it a hot streak for the Chargers. They did have a big victory over the Packers, but I think they're going to fall back down to earth in a loss to the Raiders this Thursday.
Next up is Giants at Jets, the Battle of New York. Although the Jets are at home, it's at the Giants' home stadium as they share one. I think that Daniel Jones is going to have a bounce-back game. Sam Darnold is going to continue to struggle, and the Giants are going to win.
I feel like I find myself saying this every week when the Jets play, but I think Sam Darnold's going to play better than he did last weekend, but I'm still picking the Giants.
Next is Falcons at Saints. A couple years ago, this would be a great game, but the Falcons have played horrible. Although they're coming off of a bye, still think the Saints are going to secure the victory in this one.
Yeah, everything about the Saints team is better than this Atlanta Falcons team. I'm taking the Saints.
Next is Chiefs at Titans. I think whoever the Chiefs start, if they start Patty Mahomes or Matt Moore, they will win, and I'm picking the Chiefs in this one.
I'm also picking the Chiefs. Not much more to say there.
Next is Ravens at Bengals. Ryan Finley's first game as a starting pure quarterback. We'll see. Maybe he breaks out and has an amazing game, but I'm definitely picking the Ravens in this one.
This is a tough matchup for Ryan Finley to start with. This Ravens defense isn't the same as last year, but it's a hard game for him. Excited to see him play, but I am picking the Ravens.
Next is Bills at Browns. Bills are going to win this game. Browns, a couple weeks last week, if this was a matchup last week, I would have picked the Browns. But after how they played against the Broncos, I'm going to have to pick Bills here.
I might even go as far to say that this might be a blowout in favor of the Bills. I'm definitely taking the Bills over the abysmal Browns.
Next is Cardinals at Buccaneers, the battle of the red teams, and I'm going to choose the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a good game through the air and on the ground. They have Kenyon Drake, might even have David Johnson back. So I think they're going to have a big rushing game, and they're going to outlast the Buccaneers, where Jameis Winston is going to throw more than one interception. I'm going to guarantee that.
I would say that's a bold prediction, but it's really not with how Jameis has been playing. He played well against the Seahawks, and this Cardinals defense is, I guess, subpar, but I am going to take the Cardinals in this one over the Bucs.
Next is Lions at Bears and Mitch Trubisky. I don't think I can pick him. So Lions, Matthew Stafford is playing very well, so I'm definitely picking the Lions in this one.
Yeah, whenever Mitch gets on the field and this Bears offense is on the field, I want to let out a yawn and fall asleep too. I think Matthew Stafford, although he's playing against this good Bears defense, he's going to play well. I'm taking the Lions.
Next is Dolphins at Colts, and I think Jacoby Brissett's supposed to be back. I'm not 100% sure about that. Probably should have done my research, but I think the Dolphins are going to come back to earth and lose this Colts team, even if it is Brian Hoyer under center.
Something makes me want to pick the Dolphins. I'm not Nick Kennealy, so I'm not gonna, but just know I'm pretty close to doing it. I'm taking the Colts, though. I'm being safe.
Next is Panthers at Packers. I think the Packers are going to have a bounce-back game. They're at home. I think Aaron Rodgers is beating himself up right now. He really wants to have a good game against these Panthers, and Kyle Allen's going to struggle. Christian McCaffrey's probably going to have a really good game, but I don't think it's going to be enough for the Panthers here.
Yeah, this run defense for the Packers is not very good, but I think Aaron Rodgers is going to come back with a vengeance and maybe have 3, 4, maybe 5 touchdowns. I think Aaron Jones is also going to play well. I'm taking the Packers.
Next is Rams at Steelers. Rams coming off a bye. Steelers coming off a victory. Picking the Rams in this one, straight up.
Yeah, not really much to say. I don't see much that brings much light to the Steelers' offense, and I'm taking the Rams.
Next 2 games are both really pretty good. It's Vikings-Cowboys and Seahawks-49ers on Monday Night Football. I'm picking the Vikings in this one. Think they're going to top the Cowboys. Think the Cowboys are going to have a bad home game, and Kirk Cousins is going to show up and show out.
I almost feel like I have to pick the Cowboys now because I know what you're picking next pick, and I want to have difference in our picks. So, screw it. I have a Vikings circled here on my paper, but I'm picking the Cowboys. Dalvin Cook, he might come back and have a big game, but I suspect that Zeke will outplay him. I expect that Dak will play well as well. Sunday Night Football, you know who always stinks it up in Sunday Night Football? Kirk Cousins. I'm taking the Cowboys because I'm different.
Seahawks or 49ers. Think I'm going to have to go the 49ers in this one. Not much of a surprise there, but it is a home game. It's going to be, I think, the 49ers' biggest test of the year. Everyone's always like, the 49ers are finally going to play a team next week. They are undefeated so far, but this is definitely going to be a big test. The first of 2 matchups versus the Seahawks, and especially with Quan Alexander out, it's going to be tough, but I think the 49ers are going to pull it out. I just can't pick against them.
I cannot pick against my Niners. This is the toughest game we've had all season. I thought the Panthers game was going to be tough. We ran through them. I just saw what the Bucs did to the Seahawks, and I saw what we did to the Bucs. I'm taking the Niners. I think it's going to be close. We might be down going into the fourth quarter, going into the second half. But if Jimmy G plays the way he did against the Cardinals, we're going to win this game.
All right, next up, I'm going to go a little bit into college basketball. I just turned on the TV and I realized college basketball started. Did not realize that. Today's the first day. Realized my Oregon Ducks are ranked 15th, so that's good. But a good game that's on right now is Kansas versus Duke, 3-4. And the next thing about college I'm going to talk about is the game to watch. You have to turn your TVs on to watch this one. This Saturday is LSU at Alabama. Number 1 versus number 2. Joe Burrow against, I don't know, Tua Tagovailoa might not be back. If he's back, it's going to be even a better matchup. I think that Nick Saban will try to get him back and have him over Mac Wilson, who did have a victory a couple weeks ago. But this is going to be a big, big game. Number 1 versus number 2 in the regular season. This is definitely going to have college football playoff implications. And today is the college football playoff rankings. I hope the Oregon Ducks go a couple spots up from 7. Next is mid-season predictions. We're a little bit over mid-season in the NFL. It is week 10. There is 17 weeks. Each team has 1 bye, so they have 16 games. And starting off with MVP is I'm going to have to pick Russell Wilson. Although there's an amazing argument for Christian McCaffrey to be the guy, I think that Russell Wilson opens it up for his team, and I think that he is the MVP so far this season.
Yeah, I'm taking Russell Wilson as well. I think if he keeps playing how he has been, he's going to run away with this. I think it's possible that Christian McCaffrey could be in that running, but I don't see it going to a running back. Aaron Rodgers is one to consider as well, but he's been a little inconsistent. The Seahawks' strength of schedule isn't too hard, and I think if Russell keeps playing the way he is, he should definitely run away with this.
Next is Coach of the Year. I'm picking Sean Payton, although I want to pick Kyle Shanahan because of all the different schemes that he works up with the 49ers. Sean Payton had a great play calling ability when he had Teddy Bridgewater in, and his quarterback went down, kept the Saints afloat, and I think that Sean Payton is the Coach of the Year so far.
I think if Drew Brees had played the whole season, it'd be a little closer between Sean Payton and Kyle Shanahan, but just what he was able to do with Teddy Bridgewater, as Mateo said, I'm taking Sean Payton, but I just love to see Kyle Shanahan win Coach of the Year.
Next, Offensive Player of the Year. In this one, I'm picking Christian McCaffrey, and he's been so explosive this year. He's the best, I think, one of the best talent-wise players this year. He receives, he rushes, he's unbelievable, and he is the Offensive Player of the Year so far.
I'm also taking Christian McCaffrey for my Offensive Player of the Year. I have him as runner-up for MVP, as I said, but I think he takes this one. But you could consider Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, or even Dalvin Cook.
All right, Defensive Player of the Year. I know this is a little bit of bias because he is a 49er, but I'm picking Nick Bosa. He has all the hype. I'm also picking him as my Defensive Rookie of the Year. He might not necessarily be the award winner in other people's opinions, but he's played unbelievable on defense this year. He has been a very bright spot for this undefeated 49ers team. I think he has been the best defensive player this year.
Well, great minds think alike, and all 49ers fans do come with great minds. I'm also taking Nick Bosa as my Defensive Player of the Year, as well as Defensive Rookie of the Year, easily for Defensive Rookie of the Year. For Defensive Player of the Year, he could be, right on his tail could be Stephon Gilmore or maybe even Myles Garrett.
All right, Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm picking Josh Jacobs. Are you picking Josh Jacobs? All right, looks like we're going to have all the same picks. But Josh Jacobs has been amazing for this Raiders offense. Coming out of Alabama at running back, he's just been so explosive, and he's a candidate for a top 10 running back in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm also picking Josh Jacobs.
Do you happen to be picking Cooper Kupp for Comeback Player of the Year?
Whoa, that's crazy!
Me too! Seems like we have all the same award predictions, but seems like great minds do indeed think of alike. Cooper Kupp's coming off a season where he was out the whole year because of injuries, and he's been so explosive. One of the best wide receivers in the NFL, one of the best fantasy players in the NFL, and he has outshined the other Rams wide receivers, Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods, to name a few, and he has been unbelievable this year.
I, as well as other 49ers fans, hope that Jimmy G would be a front runner for Comeback Player of the Year after a season-ending injury last year. But although the Niners are 8-0 as of now, he hasn't been much of a superstar. He's played well, but I don't think he is going to win that award. I'm taking Cooper Kupp.
All right, that seems to do it. And Saturday, if you need anything to watch, it seems like there's going to be a couple of good college football games. 18 Iowa versus 16 Wisconsin. As I mentioned, the Alabama LSU and number 5 Penn State versus Minnesota. It should shake up the rankings. I'm hoping in Oregon's bye week they can move up a couple spots. But anyways, this is a great time for sports right now. MLB free agency is just started. No big moves so far, but hopefully some come to fruition soon. Hopefully not to the Dodgers. But thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Whatever you're doing, thank you.